Alright boys, in today's video, I'm going to be answering your question to the best of my ability. We've got 4 of them. For those of you that don't know, the Chargers rookies will report to camp Saturday, while the veterans report on July 16th. The opening practice of camp will be held July 17th at the Bowl. I mean, that's insane to think about how fast this offseason is going by. I mean, I still remember the loss against the Texans, and then all of a sudden it was free agency, and then it was the draft, and then it was OTAs and minicamp. And here we are talking about training camp literally being in this weekend. Like, that is just absolutely insane. So the first question that you guys asked is, do you think the coaching staff will give Quentin Johnston too many chances to hold his starting spot? So obviously I don't have inside sources with the Chargers, so I'm going to have to answer this, again, to the best of my ability as a fan of this team that covers it every single day. And I'm going to say that the answer to that is absolutely not. The Chargers are in a position to where they're going to put out the best receivers they have. And you could argue that the biggest position battle in camp is going to be the receiver position. I wouldn't hate it at all if you said defensive line, but we're talking about Mike Williams, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Trey Harris, Ladd McConkey is obviously a lock, Jalen Reagor, Brandon Rice, like probably not going to give you much. But in terms of who's going to start, the slot's taken, but those outside receiver spots are certainly up for grabs. So a guy like Quentin Johnston, there's no guarantee he's going to get a ton of chances. He did show promise last season. Of course, he caught a bunch of touchdowns. He had some big plays, but he also, again, dealt with drops. And his route running ability isn't like the best in the world. I know not everyone can be Stephon Diggs or Devontae Adams, but Johnson, he's going to have a big camp. Like, there's just no other way around it. And hopefully for our sake, he does, because if he doesn't, well, there's plenty of guys that are going to be capable of replacing him. The next question is going to be, do you think there are going to be trade targets as the season gets closer, like the late addition of Elijah Molden last year? To me, yes, absolutely. The Chargers, they're one of those typical teams who they'll wait until the very last possible spot to be able to add to the team. And I don't know why that would change. Los Angeles, they're going to be able to find a lot of diamonds in the roughs because of their current staff. Jim Hortez and Jesse Minter and Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman. They're guys that they can take just sort of like a normal football player and turn them into a very good one. And we saw that last season. The Chargers overachieved. I mean, who saw them winning 11 games? I certainly didn't. I thought they'd be competitive, but legitimately, like, they were pretty good. Like, they were really good, the Chargers. And now they've taken even a bigger leap, of course, in the offseason. The third question, is there any reason to believe some of the offensive additions will mask the lack of investment on the interior offensive line? It's actually a pretty good question. I don't think personally that there's any reason to believe that, because if you look at the Chargers offensive line, I mean, of course, we all know to this point that they have to lock up Rashawn Slater. They did pay Mekhi Becton. Joe Alt is one of the better young right tackles, maybe even the best young right tackle in football. So those guys are going to cost a lot of money. But just because you go out there and you get like Mekhi Becton and Andre James, of course, there's a lot of pieces offensively, like a Murray Hampton and Najee Harris. Like, all these pieces are coming in. You use a second-round pick on Trey Harris. But I don't think that necessarily has an impact with the offensive line. That's going to be the most important priority for the Chargers. Justin Herbert's already gotten paid, but now you've got to get the guys protecting him all that money so they can be happy, because it doesn't matter how generational Justin Herbert is as a talent. If you can't protect him, it's worthless. And that's why the Chargers, they didn't really have, like, even though they had a good season, I just praise them, they didn't have the type of season that they probably could have had, because the interior of the offensive line was trash and nobody outside of Ladd McConkey can make a play. And at tight end, you go get Tyler Conklin, you go get Ronnie Gadsden. Is that going to be enough? I mean, it remains to be seen, but the offensive line is where it starts too, because the Chargers, they also just didn't run the ball. Like, J.K. Dobbins had a couple of good games, but against the top teams like the Chiefs and the Steelers, the run game was nowhere to be found. It was absolutely non-existent. So personally, yeah, I don't see the offensive additions masking the lack of investment on the interior offensive line. To be honest, you should be adding into that regardless of all the other pieces around. Because again, what's your ceiling if the offensive interior line is bad? Like, you're not going to be able to run the football. So yeah, I kind of answered that in a weird way. My bad. I didn't research this, or I didn't even look at the questions. I just read them and am talking. So yeah, hopefully you guys don't mind that. But the number one position battle you think will be the closest is question mark. So like I said earlier, wide receiver and defensive line, I'm going to go with receiver. It's so close. But again, like Quentin Johnson, how far is he from a Trey Harris or how far is he from a Keandre or Lambert Smith? I know those guys, like he has more familiarity because he's an older player or he's had a couple of years under his belt to this point. But in terms of, we know for a fact McConkey is going to go in the slot. But who's outside? Is it Mike Williams? Is it Quentin Johnson? Is it Trey Harris? Is it Keandre Lambert Smith? Darius Davis should be getting a lot more reps just because of how fast he is and he can stretch the floor. So, or stretch the field. Sorry, I'm still kind of in basketball. I'm coming off the NBA Finals, but that's the thing with the Chargers is there's so much talent here. Like last season, there really wasn't much. Like the Chargers didn't have a lot of skill positions that I loved, and that's why I praised Justin Herbert and said I thought he played the best football of his life in that season. There just wasn't much to work with, and the offensive line like wasn't that great. But now all of a sudden he's got a lot of weapons at his disposal, and I think receiver is going to be the biggest competition. Like the defensive line is going to be big as well. You've got Tart, you've got Deshaun Hand, Naquan Jones. So a couple of the new faces coming in that are going to be competing. And to be honest, I have no clue who's going to win the defensive line battle, but I have no clue who's going to win the receiver battle even more. Like for all we know, Mike Williams could end up being a starter, like if he has a good camp and impresses. And we've seen him be able to go up and bring in some contested catches, especially one-on-one. Herbert likes that matchup any single time. But also Mike Williams has slowed down. To this point, he's 30 years old, and it seems like his best football is ahead of him. Remember, he was a first-round pick for us back in 2017. Last season, just 21 catches for 298 yards and a touchdown. 14.2 average is pretty good, but Mike Williams, when he's at his best, I mean, that's going to be a lot higher than that because Herbert's going to throw him that go ball. So, yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of the questions. I answered everything. So, like I said, guys, just to sort of reiterate myself, the Chargers will report to camp on Saturday, at least the rookies, and then July 16th, which is in 6 days. Insane to think about, man. I mean, we're talking about literally Wednesday. Like, the veterans are going to be reporting, and then the opening practice at camp will be held July 17th at the Bolt. Harbaugh and his staff are going to be there. Jim Hortez, all the offseason moves that were made, we're about to find out in camp if they're going to be able to execute. Because you look at last training camp, the Chargers had a lot of players that nobody really was talking about coming into camp end up breaking out and playing a huge role. Like Elijah Molden was a late addition, and he was an absolute stud. So I'm excited about it. And you can't just discredit like a Cam Hart, for example. Obviously, you can't discredit, even beyond that, like a Tarheeb Still. Maybe this time around, another guy in the secondary will emerge. What about somebody next to Khalil Mack? Tuli Tupelotu had a good season, but can he take that next leap? Because even though Boza wasn't able to stay healthy, it's still Joey Bosa. He's still a very good player, one of the best in Charger history. So replacing him, the Chargers believe they have more depth. And that's a good point as well, is that, yeah, you might have 3 players you really like, but if you have 5 or 6 guys you really like, you're going to take that and you're going to prioritize it just because everyone's going to be fresh and they're going to benefit off of it. It's as simple as that. The more depth you have, the better you are at football. The Eagles had the most depth in the league, and unsurprisingly, they won the Super Bowl.